It was kind of an accident. I'm a neuropsychologist by training, and I was doing my postdoctoral fellowship at the NIH. So I was in the epilepsy research group, and my job there was to do pre-surgical mapping for patients who were going to get one of their part of their brains removed, usually their hippocampus. And so in that work, what we would do was essentially take a big skull flap off of the brain, sometimes off of both sides of the brain, do direct cortical stimulation of the brain to try to find out where language is. And in a second procedure, we would inject amobarbital into the femoral artery, put one half of the brain to sleep to see if the other hemisphere of the brain could support memory. And of course, this was an extremely invasive procedure with a risk of morbidity and mortality. And the shocking thing about it is, of course, it's a diagnostic procedure. So you could do all of that and get to the end of it and then say, I'm sorry, you can't have surgery because your seizures are coming from where your language areas are. Yep. So I was fortunate enough to be at the NIH when they had this brand new thing called PET, water PET in particular. So they had had PET scanning before, but it was with FDG, fluorodeoxyglucose, yep, which was not ideal for doing functional mapping. But Steve Peterson's paper on language had just come out using PET activation on a very simple word generation task. So we thought, well, why not do this kind of mapping in these patients who were going to have brain surgery? And it would be oh so easy. We would just have them do a language task. We would quickly identify the two language areas that we all learned about in school, Broca's area, Wernicke's area, and we'd be able to avoid all this invasive procedures. So that's what we set out to do. And of course, we instantly found out that everything we thought we knew about language was completely naive and basically wrong. So I spent a few years doing PET work and doing a lot of very, very basic experiments in language just to understand simple concepts like is there a final common pathway in oral speech, and what's the difference in language processing between written language and pictorial language and auditory language. And it was very painstaking, and of course it involved radiation, so we were all injecting our patients with the radiation. We used to take turns in those days giving the actual injection so that no one of us would become completely irradiated. So, that was fun. I was just very fortunate to be there when fMRI was first invented, and we had a good scanner at the NIH, and there were some great people there. Peter Gizzard was there, and Bob Turner was there, and Denis Lebien was there, and Jack Beliveau and Bruce Rosen and gang from Harvard came down, and we had a big workshop, and they scanned on our scanners, and we started doing clinical mapping with fMRI. And then from then on, there was just no question that that was going to be the rest of my career.